Let me call on stage Uma. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have this interactive session because we will discuss and tell you what you can do, what we can do, and what they have been doing till now. So that way, we can make that change. I need to ask this question because I introduced your organization, Aram India Initiative. The word itself says Aramb, that means to start. It started in 2012?
Yeah.
But why did you have to start it? Did you realize that, let me also put in this point, they have India's first children hotline against pornography.
You can report.
You can report pornography. Now that is a really serious issue because they don't have voices, but we've seen what is happening. So why did you initiate this?
Sorry, I'm not going to answer that before I'm going to say this. It's a very serious topic, but we're going to have a lot of fun, for sure. Because one thing that we're going to also talk about is sex and sexuality, and both these words are censored, right? Yes or no? मेरे को थोड़ा कम सुनाई देता है? So we are definitely going to address that. But going back to her question of why we started Aramb, when we started Aramb, I think the silence around the issue of gender-based violence, especially among children, was immense. So we have an outdated ministry study which happened in 2007 which says that 53% children in the country have experienced one or more forms of sexual abuse. Now the study is flawed, okay? Our on-ground experience tells us is most of us, as young girls, young boys, we have experienced some form of sexual abuse. So the stigma and the silence was huge. There were not many organizations working in this space, very few, also limited to metro cities. So our idea was, can we create a centralized platform to remove, number one, the fear out of this? Otherwise, we all live in a paranoid society where anybody can abuse any child, and any child can be abused. So we're all not trusting each other. So our idea of creating Aramb and aramindia.org, which is India's first online national resource center, which also has a child pornography hotline, was to make sure that people like yourself have a platform to read more, engage more, and understand the nuances of this issue because it's a complex issue. Yeah.
But what becomes one point when you were saying is you can report. Reporting itself takes time. It's like a mindset.
So it's an internet hotline in partnership with a UK-based organization called Internet Watch Foundation, and they are the most leading hotline in the world to remove CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material. So what you can do is, while you're surfing the internet or while you're surfing pornography, do we watch porn?
We have a very truthful crowd here.
Huh? Okay, we are just among the first top 3 nations in the world that consume porn. So let's not say we don't watch porn. We are watching a lot of pornography, right? So while you are surfing pornography, or if you stumble across images of children, and when I say children, below the age of 18, you have sexually explicit material, you can report it anonymously on the hotline. And there are analysts sitting in the UK who scan through and sort of remove the images. So that's really the process. It's a simple 5-step process, and you can go to our website and check it out for yourselves.
So, it's interesting that but the reason why I said there's a truthful audience is because it is important to address the issue, to understand, yes, it exists, pornography exists if you do, but reporting it, like I said, especially when it comes to children, because they don't have a voice, it becomes important. Now, just before we started the show here, we were having a discussion, and there were some interesting points that Uma was talking about, especially about consent, about how saying yes, about what is my line, if I can cross it, whether what is right for me, what cannot be right for you. But children don't understand that, do they? They don't know what it is. So how does that work? Is it, and let me start by asking, when you talk about children, who is the child? Are you talking, what is the age group that you talk about?
Okay, so we talk, when we say legally, the age group of child is below 18. But can I quickly do the show of hand, the exercise that we discussed?
I'm leading on to
before that.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm doing a build-up for you only.
Okay, so the thing is, I'm just worried about my time. So legally, if you look at the definition of who is a child, it's anybody who is below the age of 18. That's the legal definition. But our recent research in Maharashtra shows that mentally, about 12 people don't consider them as children. Also because IPC has this, age group as 12. So about 12 people don't look at them, especially young girls, 16, 17, etc. They don't look at them as children.
So that's what. So leading on to what I was saying. So that situation that you're talking about, we will be doing a little exercise right now. So we do need active participation from you. I give you the stage on that.
Yeah. So usually we do this workshop over a period of 6 hours, and we do it with police officers, CWC members, government functionaries, students like yourself. I'm trying to really cut it short for you guys. Everybody is with me? Yeah. Balcony wale? Balcony? Yeah. Okay. So think about this. There's a 15-year-old woman called Sita. She's extremely beautiful. Okay? Extremely beautiful. Superbly beautiful. She's in love with a man called Farooq. Sita and Farooq live in 2 different towns, and suddenly there is a flood situation that happens in Farooq's town, and there is absolutely no communication between them for 2 weeks. The only way Sita can go find out about Farooq is if she goes and takes a boat and goes to his town and meets him in person. So before she goes, she dresses up for the occasion. She takes a nice short little dress. She combs her hair. She puts on a lot of makeup. She wears red color lipstick. One more touch up of the lipstick. One more time she brushes the hair. She gets out of the house and she goes to a boat, and this boatman looks at her like this. Everybody look at me. He looks at her like this. So Sita slightly feels, So she goes to her friend Ivan and says, dude, I have to go meet Farooq. Will you come with me? We'll quickly hop onto the boat and go meet Farooq. So Ivan says, no, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to come with you. How many of you think that Sita should take that boat and go meet Farooq? Now, it's democracy, right? And you have to be honest, and we all can agree to disagree. If you think Sita should take that boat and meet Farooq, put your right hand up. If you think she should not take the boat and cancel her plans, put your left hand up. Now I want to see the hands. How many of you? Okay, so are there mics in the audience? Can I quickly get somebody with a right hand to say, why do you think she should go?
As we can see...
Did you raise your right or the left hand? Okay.
Because they love each other.
They love each other, so she should go. Very quickly, one, somebody at the back. Right hand, I can see there. Yes. Why should she go?
Any more hands here?
I'm sorry to say, but I think there is a lot less information to give final judgment.
I'm not asking you for a judgment. I'm asking you for your quick reaction.
Obviously, she should go because it is her love, obviously. And
She should go. Okay.
she should
Now,
not be feared by anything.
superb. Okay. Now I want to talk very quickly to somebody who raised their left hand. And I had the photographer right here raise his left hand. So can I get the mic to him? And he said, don't go. Why should she not go? No, you just raised your hand. Okay. Is there anybody who said, yes, I can see your hand there. Why should she not go?
Because she's just 15 years old and she's physically not able to, she of course possesses a threat. The fisherman or the boatman obviously is a threat to her. So she's not able to defend herself, I guess, given the fact that she's just 15 years old.
Okay. So she should not go. Anybody else who strongly feels? Any women? I cannot hear the women. Yes.
I'm here.
Yes. Why should she not go?
In the society that she lives, she's taught that whenever she's facing such thing, she is not supposed to go because she is not safe.
Okay. So she should not go. But do you think she should go or she should not go? I don't
should
care
not
about the
go.
society
She
right now.
should not go.
She should not
Not
go.
go.
Okay. How many of you girls would agree to this? She should not go. Can I can't see all of you, so just say we agree or whatever, Yeah, a lot of girls. Yes. Why should she not go? Yes. Yes. Why should she not go? Tell me.
You should have a justification as to why she should not go on the board.
What is the justification?
I think she's 15 and she's unaware of like the troubles and she
Okay.
should not go.
Okay.
I would not go.
Okay. Now I'm going to just add one scenario and then move on to the next one. This time, everything is same in the story, but Sita's father is extremely sick. And he is in the other town. How many of you think she should, and she is wearing something like I am wearing? How many of you think she should not go? Huh? There are still a few hands. And predominantly we are saying she should not go because of the reaction. Okay. So what should she do? She is helpless. What should she do? And this is something that we have to deeply think about, that what is the choice that our children and our women have when we say she should not go. It can be any situation, right? And she has to go, she has to reach somewhere. But here is a guy who's giving this expression. Now my second scenario to you. Sita sits in the boat, she decides to take the boat, and she goes. In the middle of the river, this boatman stops the boat and says, "You're extremely hot, and I want to have sex with you. Will you have sex with me?" Now Sita is extremely scared. She says, "Okay, I don't want to do anything like this. Please let me go." He says, "Look, the choice is yours. If you don't do this, I will push you in this river. And this river is full of crocodiles." So Sita says, "Okay, fine. Do whatever you have to do. Just let me go." And Sita and the boatman have sex in that boat, in the middle of the river. She doesn't scream. She does not shout. He's extremely gentle. And she enjoys it. How many of you think that Sita gave consent to what happened with her? How many of you think she consented to the activity? Put your right hand up. I can't see anything.
Two hands there.
Okay. Yes. Can I hear your voice? Yes.
Silence shows weakness. She chose to be silent and not shout about it. So that's her showing consent. If she really had something to say against it, she should have raised her voice.
Okay. One rule that I always say in my workshop is there has to be non-judgmental attitude, right? What is said in the room stays in the room. So we're not going to hoot, we're going to scream, we're just going to hear it out. So the gentleman feels silence means weakness. Any woman wants to respond to that? Yes, there's a hand here. Did she give consent?
If silence means yes, silence can also mean no. At times, like in a Indian society, most women are brought up in that way that they're not allowed to talk and like they're not allowed to freely express themselves. So most women have that like mindset to not even open up to anyone. And this man, he's a complete stranger. People, like there are some women who are not even allowed to talk loudly with their dad or something. Yeah. So this man, he's a complete stranger. And just because she's silent, he's taking that as a yes. No, I don't think so.
So was she raped?
Yes, she was. Yes.
Anybody thinks she was not raped? Anybody in the room? Or who is not sure? So let me clarify this for you. As you very rightly said, I just want to quickly talk about consent. Consent is something that the law tells us what it is, but it's also important for us as individuals who are going to be sexually active or who probably are to understand what is consent. Consent is freely given, right? Consent is reversible, which means it's not an irreversible process. That I say yes to something means I can never go back on my word. That's not how consent works. Consent is an informed consent, which means if you agree to do something in a particular way, it has to happen between two consenting adults in that particular way. So for example, if you have agreed for using contraception and in the middle of the act, the man changes his mind, you can withdraw consent, right? Consent has to be enthusiastic, which means you cannot be coerced or you cannot be forced or intimidated to give consent, right? And more so, consent has to be extremely specific to that particular act. So to the men in the room, I would say ask, ask, ask. And to the women in the room, I would say it out loud as much as you can. And even you should ask. Yeah? So legally, the law tells us that any activity below the age group of 18, even if they're two minors, it's illegal. And we have a problematic law because the government thinks that our young people don't have sex, which is not true. But as the law stands today, any activity, sexual activity with children below the age group of 18 is a crime, right? Irrespective of consent, yeah? So please understand consent and try and unpack it in your own life, in your own words, yeah?
See, that's one thing, but I want to come back to also the fact about child abuse and harassment. I have a 6-year-old. And I have a sense of fear what my child would possibly go through in the next 5 to 10 years. And as a parent, anybody would. The question is, would he tell me or not? You have the trust factor, you have a family, you can have your system in place. How do you generate that, that child, whoever, be a boy or a girl, walks up to you and says, I feel that I am threatened, I feel something wrong has been done to me by this person. How do you encourage that? And the question is, all of them who at this age, also you'll have friends, you have siblings, you'll have everybody. How do you go about doing that and creating that environment where you can ask the child to walk up and tell you so?
Do I have 5 minutes
Yes,
in
you
my
have.
hand? Okay, I want a male volunteer and a female volunteer very quickly on the stage. Very quickly.
Quickly.
One man, one woman. Very, very quickly.
I should have brought Diya right next year and everybody would have just...
Very quickly.
Come on.
It's just that I can't see anything. Otherwise
Okay, we've got a male... Okay.
Okay, we got one male volunteer. Yes, enthusiastic.
Come.
Sir, come.
The
No,
boy-
sir
the
can
boy in
come.
kurta, please come.
Sir can come. Sir can also be there. Sir, come.
So you
come.
want another lady volunteer?
Yeah, we can have one more lady
girl
volunteer.
volunteer, please. Lady volunteer.
Now we are going to understand basics of personal safety. Okay?
Come.
So she asked a very important question. How do our children talk? How do our children tell us? Let's do some basics of personal safety. Now you all are going to be children. And what children do in our classrooms?
This. Finger on your lips.
Purana classroom. Not like Abhi, not democracy wall wala classroom. Our regular classroom.
Undemocratic classroom
We're
is
all
finger on the
quiet. Let's assume these are our biology teachers. Okay? 2 male teachers, 2 female teachers. I'm going to start with sir. This is a biology classroom. This is sir. Sir, your name?
Amit.
Amit sir. These are, let's say, 7, 8-year-olds. You're a biology teacher. Today's session is my body parts. Sir is going to point. We are just going to follow what sir is going to do. Students, okay? Yes. We are going to follow that. Sir, you have to point your body part, say the name. Students are just going to follow you. Please, we'll start. I can hold the mic for you.
It's okay.
Huh.
I can. Okay. Top to
Please,
bottom.
Top to bottom.
Yeah. Fine. Head.
Head, बोलो बोलो. सब बोलो ऊपर वाले balcony वाले. हाँ. Head.
Eyes.
Eyes.
Nose.
Nose.
Lips.
Lips.
Chest.
Chest.
Stomach.
Stomach.
Penis.
Penis.
Thighs.
Thighs.
Knees.
Knees.
And foot.
And foot. Okay.
We'll also need a woman for this because women will have different parts.
Okay. We go to them. Wait. Top to bottom. Everything, huh?
No, you have to.
Quickly, huh? Quickly, do the same thing what sir did.
Okay. Head,
Head,
eyes,
nose,
nose,
ears,
mouth,
shoulders,
chest,
chest,
stomach,
legs.
That's it.
Did she cover everything?
No.
Did he cover everything?
No.
Ah?
No.
Did he cover everything?
No.
Acha, what did they miss? Now we'll come to the crux of why children don't tell us, because they don't know the vocabulary, yaar. What did they miss?
I will like to.
No, wait one minute. wait, 1 minute. Just 1 minute. What did they miss? Let's focus on what did they miss. It's a very teachable moment for us. What did they miss? Mouth. That's okay. Mouth, hands, legs, fingers, nails, intestine छोड़ो, आगे बढ़ो, हाँ. और breast, vagina, ass नहीं बोलते उसको बेटा. Ass. हमारे जो छोटे ब्रदर्स सिस्टर्स को हम एस नहीं सिखाएंगे. We'll try not to. I have a 2-year-old daughter, by the way. I'll try not to teach her it's an ass. Buttocks, right? So we missed some important parts. Acha, why did we miss these parts? What are these parts called? Private parts. Barabar?
Yeah.
Yes? So my penis, buttocks, breast, vagina, private. My hands, my mouth, my face is public. That's how we teach our children personal safety, right? So first thing is, can we give our kids the vocabulary? Yeah? So and this is coming back straight to why children don't tell us, because children don't know what to say. In a biology textbook, they just don't name the vagina, as if girls don't have vagina. And boys don't have penises. And बोलते लिंग बोलने में शर्म आती है. बचपन से बोलते शिवलिंग 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 शिवलिंग. लिंग की पूजा करते हैं, but we don't say ling. So the first, and also on a very serious note, when abuse cases happen, children don't know what to say. So sometimes children will come and say it in their own language. Didi, he touched my nunu. Now I don't know what is a nunu. You're understanding? The child is trying to tell me that this person has sexually violated me, but I, as an educator, don't know what the child is trying to tell me. There was a real life case where this child referred to the vagina as a fool, because us community mein poo bolte the, fool bolte the. And this child went telling 3 people that my father touches my poo and I don't like it. And nobody could spot what a poo really meant for that child. So number 1 step is give them the vocabulary. Children are not going to go and have sex if you tell them this is the vagina. For God's sake. And importantly, especially people like you who are hesitant, do not sexualize body parts. Do we use breast only for sex?
No.
What is the breast used for?
Feeding.
Just tell your children the biological functions of these body parts and they're going to be fine. Tell your young brothers, sisters, your colleagues, they're going to be fine. Yeah? So to answer your question, number 1 step, we have to start calling out these names, and then we start educating them about their own bodies and their own safety. And we do it only with adults because adults are ashamed to name it.
And that's the question I asked her. Why are you doing
Thank
it
you.
with such a
Why are you
cross
giving me
section
the
of
chance?
youngsters? Oh, she wanted a chance.
You want to speak. Now
so you
you
want to
will
do the final teaching process of which are the parts that the child needs to know?
Because I also agree her. Like somehow, like sir also didn't name it because he feels like a little bit not shame, like decorum of this.
The sir waited. He almost thought to say ass, bum, buttocks. He didn't know the vocabulary. He was actually thinking.
He was
That's
thinking.
also because the vocabulary is not ingrained in our brains at that time. So as to what we should use to communicate.
Yeah, we should use, like ma'am said that.
It's not funny. It's serious actually. Don't.
Yeah.
A lot of. So thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
You want to open it for questions? I can.
Yes,
and then I
that's.
can do the last
I'm going to do that because I'm going to open the forum for a few questions. I'm I'm going to see a show of hands. Please, we are short of time. So I'm going to take only 4 questions. Please put up your hands, ask your question, she'll reply, and then we'll close in the session. Thank you very much. Can we see a show of hands as to who wants to ask a question? Okay, the questions are coming from behind. Can I get the mics behind, please? As usual, your name first, please. It's quite the popular one, aren't you?
Hi, ma'am. My name is Sarthak. I'm second year CS student.
Hi.
Hi. So my question is, ma'am, in a situation where a person has raped another woman, do you think the onus on proving this has taken place also should fall on the man and the woman equally, considering that now in courts that a person doesn't have to be proved beyond a certain guilt to be put in jail for a rape case, in India especially?
The onus of proving whether the rape happened or not should solely rely on the rapist. It's like basically saying, if my house was robbed, I go to the police station and I say, मेरे घर में चोरी हुई है, my house was robbed. Now, I don't have to prove मेरे घर में चोरी हुई है. The chore has to prove कि उसने चोरी नहीं की है. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the ownership of proving whether the violation happened or not should never be on victims. And again, from a legal standpoint, after decades of battle, we have finally been able to shift the needle there, and now finally we are making the accountability come in. So the ownership should not be on victims.
Ma'am, can I follow up on that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask her.
A quick follow-up, please.
Yeah, ma'am. So how do you filter out the fake cases that is getting very normalized in today's India, right? Which is which is also in a certain aspect affecting what these originally stand for in the fundamental level.
Absolutely. Now we are talking. Give me the number of fake cases. Let's talk facts. What is the source of this fake case? What I'm trying to tell you is, every law in this country and across the world is misused. We all know that. Why single out one particular law and one particular case would be my counter argument. When we are saying there are so many fake cases, and you're all VIT yaar, matlab math tum log ka acha hai mere se clearly. Look at the numbers. Look at the sources. And understand, is this a counter narrative to jeopardize the narrative that's currently being written? Please try and dig deep when it comes to fake cases, because so far there is not a single conclusive authentic evidence which says so many cases reported fake. If you find it, please share it with me. I'll be more than happy to read it.
Ma'am, but
I gave you a follow-up, please. Thank you very much. Can I let the next question, please?
Excuse me? Yeah. First of all, good afternoon, ma'am. So,
Can you show your hand, please?
Here, on top.
Oh, balcony.
Right. So, first of all, good afternoon. And my question pertains to sentencing and the repercussions of false complaints. So, very recently in the United States, a woman was imprisoned after she falsely accused a man of rape, and he spent 4 years in prison, during the time which DNA evidence cleared him of the rape. She also received a prison sentence for falsely accusing him and for him losing out his scholarship in college and his football career. Do you think that this should be the precedent that India should follow to encourage valid complaints? Or do you think it's morally wrong because it would discourage victims from coming forward?
See, I would say you have to really look at the cultural context. When you're saying valid complaint, who says it's valid or invalid would be my question. And in our country, it does not go only by the law of the land. It depends on so many other issues that are aligned to it. Look at the power difference between, for example, now what is happening. Just look at the power difference between the perpetrators and the victims. So when you're saying valid complaints, see, laws are not here to protect our children. So a sex offenders registry, putting people on death rows is not going to protect children on ground. What is going to protect our children is creating a culture of accountability. What we are demanding is accountability. So I would again urge you to look beyond the popular narratives, because the popular narratives will tell you there are fake cases. But kindly dig deeper and see how many authentic cases versus how many fake cases, for you to be really able to make the judgment. You decide based on it, is what I would say. And don't follow anything blindly, like the sex offenders registry, for example. It's not going to work. Currently, they're not making it public, and we are glad they're not, because it's not going to work. For example, my father raped me. Now, do I want my father's name to be on a sex offenders registry which is openly available to the public? No. So as a victim, where is my agency? Do I want my father to be hanged? No. So there are nuances which I think get missed when you're talking about the larger narratives. That's my sort of submission to this.
Ma'am,
Yes, there is one girl. Yeah. Yes, please. There's one hand here. I don't know how many you can take.
Well, you can take that, of course.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Soumya Shastri. I wanted to ask, suppose I am outside and I am seeing that someone is being harassed, and it's maybe a lonely street, or maybe 2-3 people are there. I am seeing something wrong is being happened. So what should I do? Because I can understand what the girl is going through, but at the same time, I have to look for my safety also. I cannot just go there and stop, say stop doing. So what should be my duty at that point of time?
Not an easy one to answer. Each one has to decide. But I would say, first of all, make sure that you have other people who are reachable if you can. So I would say, don't go into any situation without having a backup. So if I were you, I would definitely look for, are any other friends around? Can I reach out to any helpline number for immediate help? Is there any police station nearby? Anything close by to really help me as well if we get into a problematic situation. Beyond that, I think it's really a choice that each individual makes. Because we have seen people who have jumped into situations, it's backfired. We have seen people who have jumped into situations and supported victims and it's helped. So every case really, depends. So, but make sure you have a support system around you when you take these big risks. That's all I would say.
Ma'am, is the public around us going to support if anything wrong happens to us? Can we be sure of that?
Can I ask you guys the question? Will you support?
Well, yes.
That's the answer. The public around you will support you if you create a culture of support. The culture that we are looking at today, so the culture of shame that was completely mounted against our victims has been reversed with things like Me Too, where now the shame is on the perpetrator. So similarly, if you're talking about accountability, if we want to create a culture of responsibility, we will create it, because Chimamanda said that culture doesn't create people, people create the culture. We are the culture. So this room is the culture of VIT. It's a microcosm of VIT. It is in your hands what you want to do with the culture of this institute and outside this institute.
Well, we'll take one last question. We have to end the session. Aren't you guys hungry? Yeah. So then one last question in your own benefit. That here? No, I think. Okay.
Oh, there's so many.
Hello, ma'am.
You can. Okay, you have a choice.
Oh my God.
You can take your pick.
Okay. I can see those girls. 2 girls,
Sorry.
right?
The girls override the boys.
I'm really sorry. But I'll talk to you over lunch. We'll have lunch together.
Yes, please, quickly. Who is the girl who put up her hand? Please
But
pass on the mic to her.
2 girls trying to, the last one. Yes.
Can I get the volume on her?
Good afternoon, ma'am. So you've been talking about creating a culture, right? So, the culture is not created yet. We need more time to create a culture like that. So do you believe that till we create a culture which is more open, do you think there should be limitations on what girls are doing, especially regarding their dressing style or their curfew time? Do you think these things should be imposed on girls at least till the time that this culture is created in the society?
Hell no. No. Please don't fall for it. Okay? The moment you stand up and assert yourself, that's when you start shifting the culture. You're not going to be able to shift the culture by being in a box, by admitting what the society tells you, by sticking to the curfew timings. You assert your rights, and that's when you slowly see the culture shift. So let's not fall into this argument of let's keep it like this till the culture changes. ऐसा कभी नहीं होगा बेटा.
Ma'am, what if it is not safe? Like how everybody believes that the dressing sense, if you're wearing something that is too revealing, it is dangerous for you. It might, you might be attention seeking, or you might be more vulnerable to a rape if you are wearing something that is more revealing. So what do you have to say about that?
No, I would say that we are currently handling a case where a 9-month-old baby was raped by her own father. Yes. And I'm not exaggerating. It's an on-ground case that my social workers are dealing with. So when we are talking about dressing and when we are talking about women, I think we really need to introspect as to what are we saying to our men and boys around us, because this toxic masculinity that we all are talking about, we are completely failing to address that while we are constantly censoring our girls and only censoring our girls. And sometimes I feel the masculinity is worse for boys, because when a boy becomes a victim of sexual abuse, he will never be able to speak up because masculinity tells him, tu mard hai, tu nahi bolega. So it is actually damaging both our women and our men. So please, let's go beyond peripherals. Let's go beyond dressing, because we do know sexual abuse of women and children happens across the board, irrespective of what they wear, where they come from, who they are, etc. So it's really the culture that needs to change and not the women.
And
not the women.
And that's why we give you a platform like Democracy Ball, where you can express yourself and also get such kind of suggestions to take it forward. Thank you so much, Uma. It was an amazing session, very interactive. All of you all did enjoy the interaction, did it? And as you all walk out today, you all are going a lot more knowledgeable, a lot more empowered, and more importantly, a lot more safer.